Lights are going up, snow is falling down. There's a feeling of goodwill around town. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here. People throwing parties, ugly sweaters everywhere. Stockings hung up by the chimney with care. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here.
At participating McDonald's for a limited time.
231. That's the average number of apps used by many companies. This leads to a lot of context and tab switching that drains employee focus and costs your company. Grammarly can help. Grammarly's AI works in over 500,000 apps and websites, making it easy for your team to write clearly and on brand without disrupting workflow. Join 70,000 teams who save an average of $5,000 per employee per year using Grammarly. Go to Grammarly.com/enterprise to learn more.
Lights are going up, snow is falling down. There's a feeling of goodwill around town. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here. People throwing parties, ugly sweaters everywhere. Stockings hung up by the chimney with care. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here.
At participating McDonald's for a limited time.
Welcome to the podcast. If you'd like to listen to an ad-free version of this episode and all of our episodes, then search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. That's our premium channel where all of our ad-free and advanced episodes live, all in one place. True Crime Today Premium Plus. Search it on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. Even try it for 3 days free.
Innocence died with the first shovel of dirt. Welcome to Hidden Killers with Tony Bruschi, featuring retired FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffindaffer.
Luigi Mangione, the 26-year-old University of Pennsylvania graduate, has been charged now with the murder of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson. This has been a case that was a manhunt initially. Then they finally found him eating a hash brown at a McDonald's. And that's where they got him, of all places. He had to go in and get that hash brown. There is a drive-thru. I don't know if Brian was aware of that. Joining me to discuss, Jennifer Coffindaffer, retired FBI Special Agent. This is, I think, one of the first times you're really diving deep into this since he has been caught. What's been your thoughts and reactions as to how far he got along the way, and how just a simple employee at McDonald's ended up naming him far, far away from the place where this murder took place?
Oh, I've followed this case so close from the minute it happened because I was so intrigued by everything. The tactics used in the assassination, the planning, all the clues, the ballistics. It just completely really consumed my interest in terms of, I'm always consumed by true crime, but this was very specifically interesting to me. But one of the things, Tony, the fact that he was found in Altoona, Pennsylvania, very close, really, when you look relatively to New York, was the fact that it seemed like he had this great plan. He was there for 10 days. He did a great job planning it. He, very slowly walks away and has the bike ready and knows exactly what he's going to do. And it seems like what I believe was a fantasy of how all this was going to play out sort of ended at some point where he was going on the fly instead of going with a plan. And that's really likely what got him caught. He tried to get into a hotel right before he got caught, but they didn't have any rooms ready because he was too early. Yeah. And we don't know if he went to other hotels in the area just minutes down the way from where he was captured. But again, his planning came to an end, and that's why he came to an end in terms of being free.
Do you think he actually thought he was going to get away with this, or is part of the plan to get caught so eventually he could be in a court and continue to spread, his message, his view, because there'll be cameras there, a lot of attention on him, and certainly would be a way to, be that martyr and get your message across?
Tony, I really think it's a little bit more simplistic than that from the standpoint of, I think this is where an ideology which was big in nature, not as personal in nature, like a Kaczynski, combined with the narcissism. And I say this, and I hate to throw that around. I am not a criminal psychologist, but just from seeing it before throughout my career, this is a guy who was taunting police with monopoly money, who was taunting police with words written on the casings. This is all about him at the end of the day, and how great I think he thought he was, and that he would be able to get away with it. So I really can't go with this huge, what's that word when you're, like a
Martyr.
Martyr, revolutionary. That's what I was looking
or
for.
vigilante.
I don't think he's some Castro revolutionary that was ready to give his life up for this or anything. I think he thought he'd get away with it. And I'm not so sure he wouldn't have done something further, more crimes down the line. I mean, he kept the gun.
Yeah.
And I think that gun was very personal to him. He made it, he constructed it. We don't call that a ghost gun, by the way, in law enforcement, a Frankenstein gun. Okay. Because it's combined different parts. I think the media, it's been funny to hear ghost gun because it doesn't have a serial number. But anyway, I think it was very personal to him in terms of keeping that gun. And I think it was more about him than his revolutionary ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I think people want to make him more of the revolutionary type person than they want to realize this just might have been a crazy narcissist who really just thought he could get away with anything. And he knew this would get him a lot of attention, and it certainly has. And people are viewing him as that revolutionary, but probably for the wrong reasons. I mean, the jackets that he wore are selling out. There's merch online that people are selling. People are not looking at this as your average shooting, where, this is a horrible thing. Like, he's being looked at, and I'd say a good chunk of the country, not just angry people in the corner, a good chunk of the country. I don't know what percentage it is. I'm going to guess more than 50%. I'm going to guess quite a bit higher, actually, too, in my gut, are saying, well, that's horrible, but, so-and-so died because they were denied care, or so-and-so had to go through this or that, and the hell that the healthcare system is. So it's hard for people on a mass scale to feel a lot of empathy or sympathy for this, because so many people have been affected negatively to an extreme by the healthcare system that they literally don't have a lot of empathy for the death of a human being.
I agree with you on a lot of these fronts. I think the statistics are probably much higher that really realize anyone who decides to shoot somebody in the back is a coward. Yeah. They're not a hero. But nevertheless, they've certainly taken at least one of his platforms. And of course, he had a lot of platforms, but taken one of these platforms and taken action. As he said, you can't just have an idea, you must take action. And he, is being a leader in this sense because people are following. You name some ways. I mean, we just saw a woman arrested for using his words, deny, and depose. Yeah. And saying you're next. And they've arrested her. She's on $100,000 bond. Yeah. So I think we're going to continue to see copycats. I just hope that it doesn't go into any action. Yeah. And that they're just, threats.
No, it certainly says something about the public's feeling on this whole issue when you have just this level of a callousness, I guess, to what is a horrible thing. I mean, this was a man had a family, kids. From every account that we had, I mean, we know he's a CEO of a healthcare company. That doesn't necessarily make you evil. But apparently it had been a big philanthropist, a pretty decent guy in his life. But nobody's learning about that or knowing about that. It's just he represented something more than he did himself. I think that's the big thing with this. What's your take on Mom saying that she had been looking for him for months, that he's kind of gone rogue? He went off to Hawaii and allegedly kind of met up with other like-minded individuals.
Well, so to follow that story, he took a job and had a very well-paying job per his own words, but it was boring him, was at Hawaii, staying in a room and with many others, like a co-op situation where you share a kitchen and a living space.
Sure.
And things are going great until he decided then to quit. But what he says is he quit to essentially, he was bored with his job and he went into Zen mode, right? He was traveling all over, Tony, in Asia and other places. I mean, he's really living the life that most of us just dream about, especially as a kid, 25 years old. But he did suffer this surfing accident, which complicated a previous situation he had with his back. But he had surgery, and by his account, if we're to believe that the Reddit account that any logical person would look at and say, this is him, because it describes him and what he's done and so on and so forth, he says it was successful and, took away his pain. Yet, nevertheless, that's being used. And a lot of people don't realize he didn't even have UnitedHealthcare.
No.
So to me, this wasn't really personal as much as it was an ideological situation that drove him.
I guess the question is like, how did he come to choose this CEO? Why? I get ideologically, you're going to pick a prominent individual, to do this to, but it wasn't even the person that was the head of a healthcare company that may have done him wrong, if anybody did him wrong. To go to that length, I mean, that's the weird part about all this, just being indoctrinated and then just having the lack of pause to go and do something like this. I mean, what was the trigger that you think made him take the actions he did?
Well, I think his target selection had to do with the largest healthcare company in the United States. So that makes sense. And we know it was well planned out because the monopoly money. Yeah. And they were under investigation since 2023 for possibly running a monopoly and insider trading. And, we see that certainly he traded over $1 million in stocks in February of 2024, meaning Brian Thompson and a lot of other high-level officials also traded away these stocks, which maybe they just wanted to trade them, but they knew they were under investigation for this insider trading situation. So I think he kind of focused in on the most egregious proprietor, if you will, of what he called, a parasite. So I'm not surprised he made this choice, but what I do think remains completely unanswered is how he knew Brian Thompson would be on that sidewalk well in advance of the conference at that moment in time, not even staying at the same venue, but coming from a different hotel. That leaves a lot of questions to me, unless he got him under surveillance right away. Did he have insider information, in other words?
That's a big question. Welcome to the podcast. If you'd like to listen to an ad-free version of this episode and all of our episodes, then search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. That's our premium channel where all of our ad-free and advanced episodes live, all in one place. True Crime Today Premium Plus. Search it on Apple Podcasts and press subscribe. Even try it for 3 days free.
You're neck deep in a dark, twisted tale, and just as the tension peaks, bam, a commercial about some miracle diet pill breaks the spell. It's like finding a fly in your soup after the first bite. But here's the fix. True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts. You get to enjoy your crime stories without the junk, ad-free episodes, extended interviews that go beyond the surface, and early access to all the gruesome details. It's like swapping out a can of cheap beer for a glass of fine whiskey. So search for True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe and keep the darkness flowing uninterrupted.
Lights are going up, snow is falling down. There's a feeling of goodwill around town. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here. People throwing parties, ugly sweaters everywhere. Stockings hung up by the chimney with care. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here.
At participating McDonald's for a limited time.
Lights are going up, snow is falling down. There's a feeling of goodwill around town. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here. People throwing parties, ugly sweaters everywhere. Stockings hung up by the chimney with care. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here.
At participating McDonald's for a limited time.
Lights are going up, snow is falling down. There's a feeling of goodwill around town. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here. People throwing parties, ugly sweaters everywhere. Stockings hung up by the chimney with care. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here.
At participating McDonald's for a limited time.
Lights are going up, snow is falling down. There's a feeling of goodwill around town. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here. People throwing parties, ugly sweaters everywhere. Stockings hung up by the chimney with care. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here.
At participating McDonald's for a limited time.
Lights are going up, snow is falling down. There's a feeling of goodwill around town. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here. People throwing parties, ugly sweaters everywhere. Stockings hung up by the chimney with care. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here.
At participating McDonald's for a limited time.
Lights are going up, snow is falling down. There's a feeling of goodwill around town. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here. People throwing parties, ugly sweaters everywhere. Stockings hung up by the chimney with care. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here.
At participating McDonald's for a limited time.
Lights are going up, snow is falling down. There's a feeling of goodwill around town. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here. People throwing parties, ugly sweaters everywhere. Stockings hung up by the chimney with care. It could only mean one thing. McRib is here.
At participating McDonald's for a limited time.